Heidi-ho there, neighbor. It is September 27th. Wow. 21st. Didn't mean to scare you guys. It's not 6 days later. It's 21st. Scared myself there. But it's September 21st, and we're live. So let's meander a bit, wait to see if anybody pops up to watch, and then we'll have a show. I got to watch my Panthers today. Well, not watch, but I got to follow my Panthers today. That's the problem with being a California native, living in just outside of Los Angeles, and rooting for a team in North Carolina. You don't get to see a lot of the games, especially since the Panthers aren't that good right now, though they were today. Today they were very good. Today they beat the Atlanta Falcons 30-0. Yep, the Falcons, they were there. They showed up. They had all the guys in uniforms. There was people on the field. Again, they were throwing the ball. They were trying to run the ball. Their kicker tried to kick some stuff, but it just didn't work for them. Where the Panthers, it worked for them. They got a quarterback sneak for a touch, or quarterback run for a touchdown. They had a running touchdown for Rico Dowdle. They had a pick six by Chow Wade Smith. They had another interception, almost run back by Michael Jackson. Hee. And 3 field goals from Fitzgerald. So, yeah, it was a good day. It was a good game. 30 points. What's funny is the experts saw a dozen experts listed saying what the Panthers were going to do today, and every single one of them said they were going to lose to the Falcons. And the scores that they picked, the highest score anybody had the Panthers scoring today was 20. Everybody else had them in the teens, and the Falcons were in the 20s, the high 20s. Yeah, it didn't work out that way. Didn't work out that way at all. But so I see we have a person watching now, so I can actually start talking about interesting stuff. What I plan on talking about is a murder mystery that I helped solve last night, or worked on last night. Not a real one, but one of those case files that you can buy and get with your friends and solve the case together. We did that last night, and that was interesting. And I found out I'm much nerdier than I thought I was. And then also, I got some opinions I want to share, and I'm pretty sure they're unpopular opinions, and it might just be a lot of Gran Torino stuff. Get off my lawn, back in my day. So we're going to get to that stuff, but hello to whoever is out there. I am hoping that my friend Ed is going to be joining us this evening. I am worried about Ed. It seems that from what I've come to learn, Ed, who is a regular here, he has been a great supporter since I started doing the show on The Experience, and then followed me over here and doing Popco the Writers and stuff. Ed fell and broke his back, was in the hospital, but he's finally home. So I'm hoping he's home and recovering and turns on the show and gets to say hi, and I hope he's doing well. And even if he doesn't come on tonight, I do hope he sees this on a replay or something, because I'm thinking about you, bud, and I'm hoping you're doing well. So this goes out to Ed. And actually, Ed, that was the deciding factor of doing a show tonight or not. I was iffy on it, but I'm like, nope, I got to do one just in case Ed wants to watch. So now let's get into this. I bought this on Amazon. This is Murder of a Millionaire, Cryptic Killers case file. And I got to tell you, this was different than I expected and way more fun than I expected. What's in here is, I don't want to say too much, because this is the inexpensive first one you can get. I think it's like $12, $10, 15, something like that. So it's not that expensive. The other ones are a little more expensive, like 20, but not bad. There's like 10 of them, I believe. But the amount of stuff they put in here is really surprising, because they give you everything you need to solve the case. And the case is about a young girl who wins the lottery, wins $13 million, but decides she doesn't want to spend it too much. She doesn't want to spend it too quickly. She's not going to help out. But basically, she decides she's not going to help anybody out, because then she doesn't have to, then it's not personal. It's not like, well, I helped this person, but I'm not helping this person, blah, blah, blah. Just blanket across the board. And some of her people just don't take kindly to that. They need money. So her father's a suspect, her boyfriend's a suspect, some friends of hers are suspect, an ex is a suspect, her boss, and it's kind of interesting. But what it is, they give you all the evidence you need to eliminate suspects. So they give you like 5 or 6 suspects. And then they give you everything you need to eliminate everybody but one. And you can kind of piece it together. Now, overall, it was pretty fascinating, because I got together with Lisa, my fiance, and Debbie, my ex-wife, which is kind of an odd pairing. But yeah, we got together. I made spaghetti. And we sat down and started going through it. And in there are photos of the victim from, just everyday life with some of the suspects. A photo of her and her father from when she was a child, her and her friends, her and her coworkers. And then photos from the crime scene. There's police reports. There's autopsy reports. Then there's other pertinent things like a betting slip, a taxi cab receipt, a train schedule, a map, a newspaper that talks about the her winning the lotto when she did, or was it about her murder? I don't remember which. But so there's all this stuff in there, and when you really, and there's a certain point, there's also a note attached to one of the things that says, by the way, there's a couple things that are in my email, but I'm on vacation and you're taking over. So here's the information to get on my email. And you go, and they've got this faux website that looks like a police station website, and you sign in and you get into their email and you find more evidence. So besides what's already cram-packed into this case file is more stuff. But I'd say the most interesting thing was there's a part where a drop cipher becomes involved. And that's where I'm like, yeah, I'm far geekier than I thought, because I recognize that it was a possible drop cipher, and I know how to solve one. I know the steps to go about to start figuring out what the cipher is, and I was able to work it out pretty quickly what the cipher was, and then went through the whole message, and it was a long. It's a long message to the point where Deb ended up having to leave, and Lisa went to go lay down while I'm sitting there hunched over my computer, looking at the screen and figuring it out. Got my site, my code, and finally I called Debbie and I called Lisa out of the room. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to solve the crime. It really was fun. So if you watch murder mysteries and you're like, well, I could have solved that, or I had that figured out, that's what this is really for. This is for you to kind of test that ability. And yes, we did find the killer. We got it right. We missed one or two clues that would have made it a little easier, but overall, we got everything figured out. But what I like about it is it's not really a game. It's not really okay, well, it's your turn, it's your turn, it's your turn. It's not a turn-based system or anything like that. It's simply, here's all the evidence, go. And you sit there and you start sorting through and you start trying to piece together to make sense of it. Like, okay, what can we glean from this piece of information? Who does it pertain to? Who does this pertain to? Who was placing bets? Who was doing this other thing? Da, da, da. And once you start figuring that out, I mean, we were ready to make a murder board. Oh, yeah. Lisa and I are technically engaged. I haven't been able to get her a ring yet. But yeah, but it's still probably going to be, we're looking in a couple years to get married, to put some money aside so we can do an actual ceremony. But thank you, Jeff. But yeah, so we sat around and did that, and it was a lot of fun. So if you ever think that, you watch murder mysteries and like, I could solve that, I recommend this. It's Cryptic Killers. It's the name of the company. And like I said, they've got like 10 different ones. This one was their first one. So and from what I've heard review-wise, that it's a little bumpy compared to the others. The others, they kind of smooth it out. But they really go the extra effort. The photos are real photos. The newspaper feels like a newspaper. There's a train schedule that like you pick up from the train station. It's a bifold, whatever. And it's printed like a real one, not just a cheesy, paper thing. It's got some weight to the paper. The faux newspaper feels a bit like a newspaper. It's not that big, but every story on there is important, type of thing. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. We're definitely going to get another one and do it again. But yeah, that was fun. So, all right. Moving on. The other thing I said I was going to talk about are some unpopular opinions. These are things that I was thinking about, and I'm pretty sure it's because I'm old. I see all these people online when they're talking about, superhero movies and superhero comics and stuff. And, I realized that I read my first comic in 1975 when my Uncle Dave brought one for me and my brother Jeff, who was in the chat. And my brother Jeff went, have another comic. So I ended up with two. So, yeah, I've been reading comics for 50 years. So when I look at these characters, I have 50 years of experience. So anybody out there going, oh, we need to get to Venom. We need to get to Venom. To me, Venom's a newer character. There are so many characters. And I know Venom was created in the 80s or 90s. So it's not really that new of a character. But in my mind, he is. We've got so many Spider-Man villains we got to get to before Venom. Why are we rushing? And Sam Raimi was the same thought process. He wanted to do Sandman, and the studio wanted to do Venom and forced it in there. And that's kind of what destroyed the third Spider-Man film from Raimi and Tobey Maguire. So I look at this stuff and maybe, like I said, it's just old school. I think of, People love Wally West Flash. I like Barry Allen. I like not the first Flash because there's Jay Garrick, but to me, Barry Allen's the Flash. And that's who we should be focused on. Oh, let's do Wally West. Why? You know? Oh, we got to do John Stewart Green Lantern. What? But how? You should start with how. And, maybe there's people who are older than me, who are in their 70s going, no, we should start with Alan Scott and Jay Garrick. And you know what? I get it. I understand. But for me, Barry Allen's The Flash, Hal Jordan's Green Lantern. And I want to tell those stories because I know there's decades of amazing stories. But what got me on this topic tonight was a report I saw, and I have to stop reading some of these or listening to some of these reports because they're always just rumors and BS. And somebody was saying that originally Matt Reeves wanted to do Robin in the new Batman movies with Robert Pattinson, but James Gunn has told him no and put him off limits. Now, besides all of that sounding like total BS, if you've seen the recent Batman movie, The Batman, you know that this is a younger Batman, probably in his second year. He wouldn't have a 12-year-old sidekick running around. But then you also look at what Matt Reeves is doing with the Batman crime saga, or epic crime saga, which was what he's calling it. It's grounded. It's gritty. It's crime. It's a crime saga. Putting a 12-year-old in a bright yellow cape and throwing him out there to fight grown men, that's a crime. That's a crime. And, oh, Jeff, really? I will say this, and only this, about Charlie Kirk's assassination. It's a horrible thing. I do not think political violence on any side is right. I am sad that he was killed. I didn't agree with most of what he said, but that's beside the point. What happened was despicable. And everybody rushing, trying to point fingers and say, well, this is because of this and that. We don't know really what happened. The suspect isn't talking. He's not saying what happened, why he did it. We don't know how much of what's coming out is real. So all of that aside, the only thing I'm commenting on is that political violence of any kind is wrong. And end of story. So, all right. So back to the Batman thing. I never saw, I can't see Matt Reeves putting Robin in the Batman trilogy that he's doing. Again, I think it's too young in Batman's career, but that got me to, thinking, and I know that they're going to put Robin in the DCU when they do a Batman in the DCU instead of, when it's part of like the new Superman and stuff like that. But I'm not a Robin fan. Now, I like Dick Grayson. I like what he grew up into. I like him as Nightwing and part of the Teen Titans. I couldn't give two rats' asses about Jason Todd, Tim Drake, and I really am not a fan of Damian Wayne. I started to accept Tim Drake when he was Robin. I have no like at all for Damian Wayne. And I've yet to read a story where I go, I see what that character's about. I see what they're doing with him. No. Unless the whole point is to annoy Batman. No. So I don't want my Batman running around with a child and doing child endangerment. I don't think that's great storytelling. I also am not a fan of derivative characters. You know? Green Lantern, I kind of accept because it's not really a title as it, or it's not, it's like being a police officer. So there can be multiple Green Lanterns. It's like a patrol unit or an army. You know, they're space cops. So I let that one go. But I think there's way too many Green Lanterns on Earth for some reason. Every sector is supposed to have one, but yet Earth has got like 7. Some bizarre number like that. It's actually, I think it is like 6 or 7, isn't it? Anyway. So yeah, I'm not a fan of that, but you know, you had Flash and Kid Flash and fine. Didn't need the sidekick, but we had it. We had Barry Allen, we had Wally West, and then we had Bart. Why do we need Bart? Impulse. Okay, well, he's got his own name. But now he's like, now there's Wally West as the Flash, Barry Allen is the Flash. It's just confusing. You know? Right up there with Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and Miles Morales. Miles Morales is a great character. They've done some amazing stuff with him. I think he's great. I like watching him. I like what they're doing with him. Give him his own name. Give him his own thing. You know, in a way, by saying, you know, oh, he's Spider-Man. It's like you're trying to pad on. They're trying to pad on all the lineage of Spider-Man to move this character forward. It's like he's a good character that stands on his own. Just give him his own name. Let him be his own character. You know? Spider-Gwen. Well, you've called her Ghost Spider. Why not just keep going with that? Why Spider-Gwen? You know, or Gwenpool, or all these derivative characters, they drive me nuts. And, you know, so like I said, maybe it's just the fact that I'm older and I have characters that I grew up liking and I want to see them. I don't want to jump so far ahead that we're getting to characters that, you know, I didn't see, you know, that I've got 20 years of reading before they even show up. You know? I want to see the original X-Men. I want to see Cyclops and Jean Grey and Iceman, Beast and Angel. But no, we're already on to Wolverine and Colossus, and oh, we've got to have Gambit. It's like, well, Gambit is from the, I don't remember when Gambit was Jim Lee's run, so that was the 80s, late 80s. But it's like, can we? It would be like trying to tell the history of all the presidents, but rushing forward to, you know, well, we're only going to do Abe Lincoln, and then Eisenhower, and then Nixon, and you know, we're going to go through Reagan, and then it's like, but there are other presidents. We should just tell the whole story. No, we're just going to do the really super popular ones based on the new readers, you know? The new people. Oh, yeah, all the kids today, they love Kennedy and Teddy Roosevelt, so we're just going to go right to them. But what about Washington and Adams and Jefferson? They were important too. No, just going to skip right to. And we're going to do Hamilton. Hamilton wasn't a president. Yeah, but he's popular, so we're going to do that too. that's kind of how I look at what they're doing with comics. Is they rush to it, you know? It's like they're talking about when they do Man of Tomorrow, the second Superman movie, that they're moving fast on. But it's like it's going to be Lex Luthor and Superman teaming up to take on a big bad. And everybody's like, okay, well, it's going to be General Zod or Darkseid or Parasite or Brainiac. And then somebody will come along and say, or Doomsday. And it's like, these other characters have been around since the 40s and the 50s. And you want to jump to the guy from the 90s who beat up Superman and gave him a mullet. After fighting Doomsday, he came back with a mullet. That's right there. But I don't know. I like I said, maybe it's just that I'm old. That I think of these characters and I think of when I was growing up, when I was a kid, who was Captain America fighting? Who was Spider-Man fighting? You know? I want to see those characters. I don't want to jump ahead. I want to, there's this whole rich history. Do you like gladiator movies? You know, I have yet to see Gladiator 2, but Gladiator 1 was a good movie. And of course, Spartacus. That I Am Spartacus scene right there. That is, as Scorsese would say, pure cinema. So, yeah, I would like them to slow down and focus on, you know, these characters have these long, rich histories. They shouldn't just jump in, you know? Just because, oh, this character is super popular right now. Okay. Yeah, you gave Venom his own movie. 3 of them. That didn't work out that well. Yeah, the first one did okay. The second one, not so much. And the third one. And you kept spinning off from that. You gave Morbius a movie. Morbius. You gave Madam Web a movie. Who in their right mind gives Madam Web a movie? There needs to be, you want congressional hearings? Let's get a congressional hearing to figure out how Madam Web got a movie. You know, and it's not like they did traditional Madam Web either. They knew it wasn't going to work because in the comics, Madam Web is like 80 years old and stuck to a giant web that she can't walk. And they went, Daisy Johnson, we'll get her. Yep. Don Johnson and Melanie Griffith's daughter would get her. Perfect casting. For what? And we'll throw Sydney Sweeney in there too. And Isabel Merced. What are you doing? Madam Web. No, you're not. Yeah, this is my Gran Torino night, I guess. This is where I get to be the old guy being grumpy. You know? It's like with the DCEU when they were doing that stuff and they brought out Blue Beetle. And it's like, oh, okay, we're going to get Blue Beetle. Is it going to be Dan Garrett? Is it going to be Ted Kort? Oh, no, it's going to be Jaime Reyes. Okay. All right. Jaime's a good character, but at least in there, they acknowledged Dan Garrett's character and they acknowledged Ted Kort. So I give a little pass on that. Plus, George Lopez was funny in the movie. But the one time it didn't bug me that much, besides Blue Beetle, was Ant-Man. The fact they went straight to Scott Lang instead of doing Hank Pym, but they still kept Hank in there. And Hank was still the original Ant-Man. They just said, but we're going to focus the movie here on Scott Lang. And why made perfect sense because some idiot in the comics decided, let's make a Hank Pym a wife abuser in the comics. And it's like, well, So everybody who loved the character up until this point suddenly has to go, ooh, why'd you do that? You know, and then you can't use them properly. I really am going to be grumpy tonight because that's just lazy writing. You know, I see that so much in comics nowadays. It's like, you know, they don't just come in and tell a good story. They come in, they want to make these drastic changes. You know, oh, I'm going to kill this character and I'm going to bring that one back to life and I'm going to, you know, um, really shake things up over here. And it's like, you know, they've done years and years of these characters without having to do, you know, drastic tales, and they told great stories. Why does he suddenly need to have a brother we've never known about, or, you know, we find out that his parents were actually murderers, or why? Can't you think of a good story? If you're a writer, can't you think of a good story to tell with an existing character? You know, if somebody walks up and said, here's this character, I want you to tell a good story with it. Shouldn't that be enough of a prompt? You look at it and you go, okay, and you sit down and you write a story. You don't come back going, well, can I kill him and replace him with another character? Why? Because you know 6 months down the line, they're going to change it back. You know, when I first got into writing, I had someone tell me, you have to look at this stuff like it's you're borrowing toys from a friend's toy box. And you got to give it back in the same condition as you borrowed it, if not better. So whenever I sit down and write a character, I think of it that way. And I've done some legacy characters. You know, I've written for the Green Hornet. I've written 2 stories for the Green Hornet, and I focused on things that were based to the character, important things to the character. One story had to do with the fact that everybody thinks he's a criminal. So I played with that idea. And another story had to do with how he's looked at by one of the members of the newspaper, the reporter who's always trying to catch him. You know, the only change I made to the Green Hornet's legacy was I inserted a character that showed up in both stories named Eugene Pops Roberts, named after my dad, just so I could say I put my dad into the Green Hornet story because he listened to the Green Hornet on the radio when he was a kid. It was, you know, kind of a fun thing to do for my dad. Now that character is canon to the Green Hornet. When I wrote The Phantom, again, it's like, what can I do? What can I focus on in the existing lore? And it was the history and legacy of the character. And I went into that. You know, I found a way to tell an interesting story. You know, I wrote Vampirella when I wrote, you know, adapted The Boys, when I write other people's characters. It's not about making big dramatic shifts to the character. It's about telling a good story. That should be what is all, you know, the only thing that should be about. You know, you leave your mark by telling an entertaining story. Now Jeff's quoting Blazing Saddles. Great line, by the way. That is one of the funniest lines Mel Brooks ever wrote. Anybody got a dime? Oh, someone's going to have to go back and get a shitload of dimes. Slim Pickens. Such a good movie. And I feel bad because it would be hard to do that movie nowadays. Actually, I wonder how many of the movies we grew up with would be able to do now. I'm looking over here, and I've got a couple classics over on my side table here. Some Like It Hot, Citizen Kane, The Princess Bride. How would those do nowadays? The Princess Bride is one of the movies that seems to be the most universally loved. I mean, I can count on one hand the number of people I have met that didn't like The Princess Bride, and one of them being Jim, the guy I used to co-host this show with. Would it be that universally liked nowadays? Would people even give it a chance? You know, I mean, nowadays movies, you never know what's going to sell at the theater. I was looking at the box office this weekend, and one of the Crunchyroll animation films, the Demon or K-pop Demon Hunter or whatever it is, that's the top of the list. But you know, there's this little film called A Beautiful Journey or something with Margot Robbie and Colin Farrell. And we know Colin Farrell's an incredible actor. We just saw him just chew up the scenery with the Penguin, do an amazing job with that. We know Margot Robbie's a good actress. It's just this little travel film between the two of them. It made $8 million globally. Everywhere. It opened up and made $8 million. That's only $8 million more than I made this weekend, and I didn't even open in a theater. Almost went political there again. Almost. About censorship. I'm not a fan of censorship. I'll just put it that way. On either side. Not for hate speech, but censorship. I feel like we're kind of all over the place tonight. My brother throwing Mel Brooks quotes into the chat. By the way, Jeff, if I don't know if you know this, they're working on a sequel to Spaceballs. Bill Pullman and Daphne Zuniga are coming back. Michael Winslow's coming back, the guy that does the sound effects. So there is a Spaceball 2 sequel beginning to film. I think it's called The Search for More Money. So, by the way, if anybody is interested in and is a fan of Mel Brooks, he recently put out an autobiography. And I'm an audiobook listener. I love things on audiobook. He reads it himself. So there's nothing cooler than listening to Mel Brooks tell the story of Mel Brooks' life in this audiobook and all the stuff, meetings and behind the scenes stuff. That is great. I highly recommend that. And on that same wavelength, since we talked about it, there's a book Carrie Ells wrote about the making of the Princess Bride that he played, of course, the Dread Pirate Roberts and Wesley. He tells the story of making the film and everything that went on, and he reads the audiobook on that too, and that is awesome as well. So I do recommend both of those. All right, so let's see. I did my old man stuff. I talked about solving crimes last night. I think I pretty much hit the highlights of what I wanted to do. Update on Obsidian Moon and the Lucius Fogg book. I am working on the second act. I've got it all plotted out, made a bunch of key decisions. I'm just a little stuck because there's a huge transition between end of Act 1 and the beginning of Act 2. And I don't know if I got it right. And it's kind of slowing me down a bit. So, but I'm working on it. And I'm hoping to get back into good headspace to write that this week and get that going so we can get to the Kickstarter on it soon. Also, Jason is working on the cover. I had an hour and a half conversation with him the other day, I think it was, all talking about what the book is about so he can get an idea of what to do for the cover. And in doing so, I'm like, I need to answer that question, don't I? Okay, let's go with this. So I was able to figure out some things I hadn't solved yet just because of the impetus of needing an answer for Jason. I was able to find the answer for myself. So that's still in the works. I'm talking to somebody about maybe doing some other novels again for them. I was hoping that answer would lock in this week. It hasn't happened yet, but hopefully we'll get some answers next week, within this next week, and I can get a better idea of how much time I'll have to do Fog and how much time I'll have to work on this other stuff. But I gotta pay the bills and keep the lights on and keep the stream service paid. So, all right, guys, I think I'm going to wrap that up there. Unless you guys have any questions, yeah, let me pause just for a minute, see if you guys want to throw any questions out. Again, Ed, if you're listening, I hope you're doing well. Recover quickly, and if anything I can do to help, let me know. I know you've got a bunch of the books and stuff that I sent you digitally, so hopefully you're able to read those. If not, if suddenly you need physical copies, let me know and we'll figure something out. So, yep. All right, guys. Looks like we are good on questions. I will be back next week. Yeah, I think we'll come back next week. Maybe I'll come up with a topic. I'm kind of leaning towards what I would do if I got a control of the Valiant universe. Because for God's sake, somebody needs control of the Valiant universe. Until next week, then, have a great week. I will see you all then. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Well, that really depends on the size of the wood, Jeffrey. Because if you think about it, if we're looking at small amounts of wood that they can move easily, they can move a lot of it. But if it's large cores of wood, does it have the body mass to be able to move them? Because if the mass is too big for the woodchuck to chuck it, it's not going to be able to chuck any. So really, you need to, think about your question, specify what's the size of the wood, and we can go from there. Bring that to me next week and we'll talk about it. All right, everybody. Have a great night. I'll see you soon.